All right, welcome back to Fantasy Files 1054 or FFX54 for short. This is going to be the Week 10 wide receiver ranking video. Before we get into the video, I'm going to remind you guys, if you like the video at any point during the video, please do go ahead and drop that like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. We do ranking videos every Tuesday, every Wednesday, and then Sundays before the games start. We go through, clean up any injury or just any reports for that matter. And you guys can come in, ask your questions, and then we're just going to be placing bets and kind of hanging out. So swing by and subscribe to the channel. Our support has been crazy lately, so thank you for all you guys out there. But we're going to hop right into the content. I'm trying to get this to you a little bit quicker. I know I say that every single video, and every video it ends up being like 45 minutes, but we're going to try. We're going to try to fly through this and see how that works out for us. So first off, we're going to have our boy, Tyreek Hill. We can't really rank him any lower than number 1 anymore. He's given us no choice. On the season already, he has over 1,100 yards, and the person that's closest behind him, I think, is Justin Jefferson with a little under 900 or right around 900, if I'm not mistaken. But the point is that Tyreek Hill is balling out every single week. And if you look to your the bottom left of your screen, you see the Miami Dolphins allowing 35.4 fantasy points to the wide receiver position. Now, this is the Miami Dolphins defense. The reason this is important is if their defense is going to let up a lot of points, it's going to turn every game into a shootout, and we know that the Miami Dolphins offense can handle a shootout, and we've seen it with the production through Tyreek Hill, through Jalen Waddle, a little bit of Mostert, a little bit of Jeff Wilson now. So this offense is humming with Tua back in the quarterback position, and Tyreek Hill is going to be the number 1 unless something major happens. So right behind Tyreek Hill, we're going to have Cooper Kupp right behind him. We were a little unsure going into last week what his workload was going to look like, what his productivity was going to look like with that injury that was kind of lingering. It was questionable leading up to the game. But then he comes out, he gives us, 9 targets, 8 receptions, 127 yards, and a touchdown. So, and they even give him some touches on the ground. So this tells us that the ankle's not bothering him at all. He's going to continue to produce at a very high level. And currently, at the time of this recording, he is putting up 24.8 fantasy points per game. So, I mean, with that kind of productivity, Cooper Kupp is going to be our number 2 on the week. Right behind Cooper Kupp, we have Stephon Diggs against Minnesota. Kind of a revenge game, but not really since so much time has elapsed. Minnesota's looking very good, but honestly, all these guys in this first S tier are going to be matchup proof. We're not really too worried about that. These guys are studs regardless. The only thing to know with Stephon Diggs that you're going to want to keep an eye on throughout the week is Josh Allen is kind of nursing. I think it's an elbow bruise or some sort of elbow injury on his throwing arm. So just keep an eye on that. Another reason to subscribe to the channel and come through on Sunday so we can clarify all these types of issues. But Stephon Diggs, if Josh Allen goes, is going to be our number 3. And then right behind Stephon Diggs is the other receiver in this match is Justin Jefferson. Again, matchup proof. We saw the Jets put up some points on the Buffalo Bills, and they fell to them last week. So I'm not worried about the matchup once again. Justin Jefferson produces pretty much every single week. Not much to be said here. Justin Jefferson is going to be our number 4. Right behind Justin Jefferson, we have D-Hop again producing at a top 5 fantasy value every single week. I'm trying to pull his stats up here real quick just to give you an idea of what he's been doing. But he's been looking like 20 points, 33 points, and then his quiet week last week against the Seattle Seahawks was 13.6. This was a game where not a whole lot was really moving for the Arizona Cardinals. It's kind of an off game, and if an off game is going to be 14 points, that's a top 5 wide receiver type of bar to set. So DeAndre Hopkins is going to go up against Jalen Ramsey, which on paper should be a tough matchup, but if you look on the bottom left of your screen, the Los Angeles Rams have been allowing 34.5 fantasy points to the wide receiver position. They haven't looked themselves on the defensive side of the ball, being the Rams. So DeAndre Hopkins should be in a perfect spot to succeed with no Marquise Brown. And he's going to be a top 5 for week 10. Right behind DeAndre Hopkins is Devontae Adams. Comes out, reminds us why he was paid all that money, why he's an Alpha X wide receiver, and why he is one of the best in the league and one of the best to ever do it. He had that slow week with the 1.2 fantasy point performance. Again, he was going through a illness. This isn't like an injury where you're either good or you're not. An illness, everyone has been sick. Everyone knows what it feels like to try to get something done when you're sick. And if Devontae Adams goes out there still feeling bad, a slow game is going to be understandable. He comes out and says, look, I'm still Davante Adams. Don't worry about it. If you're a fantasy manager, I'm going to go ahead and give you, 36.6 points in basically the first quarter of the game. So Davante Adams versus the Indianapolis Colts defense, which is actually one of the hardest matchups in the entire league. But I'm not worried about it since it is Davante Adams. He'll be our number 6 for the week. Right behind Davante Adams, we have A.J. Brown going up against the Washington Commanders. Again, allowing 36.3 fantasy points to the position. The only thing about the Philadelphia Eagles that keeps A.J. Brown out of the top 5 conversation is the fact that they're so good. They go up early, and then when they do go up, unlike the Bucs, unlike the Bills, they don't keep the pressure on. They're okay with running the ball, giving it to Miles Sanders, and kind of getting out of there with that win. So if A.J. Brown is going to put up all these points in the first half and then basically be irrelevant in the second half, it's great if you're a Philadelphia Eagle fan. But if you're a A.J. Brown owner, you do wish that they would keep their foot on the gas. But nonetheless, he's been a very productive wide receiver in the fantasy football regard. So he'll be our number 7 on the week. Right behind A.J. Brown is Jalen Waddle. Again, everything we said about Tyreek Hill basically applies to Jalen Waddle. He's still the number 5 receiver on the year as a whole, averaging 18.2 fantasy points per game. I thought that his game versus my Baltimore Ravens was a fluke. I didn't think there was any way that Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle could be supported in this offense. I was wrong. He has put up 15. Then he had the backup quarterback, so we'll take those scores out of the equation. With 2 at quarterback, he's put up 15.1, 16.9, 12.8, 30.6, 19.5 with an insane amount of volume. So, I mean, regardless of what I thought originally in the beginning of the season, after that 40-point performance he had in week 2, he's still been putting up numbers. So Jalen Waddle is going to be our number 8 on the week. Behind Jalen Waddle, we have Amon-Ra St. Brown. Again, another player. Well, I guess not again, segueing from Jalen Waddle, but Amon-Ra is the type of player that we're used to seeing insane production from him, and he's had a pretty slow past, honestly, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, past like 6 weeks has been very slow with the exception of week 8 versus the Miami Dolphins, but I do expect this to pick up. He was dealing with a bunch of injuries, both to him and to teammates. So look for this to pick up. We saw TJ Hawkinson leave the offense. We're going to get the DeAndre Swift back more and more every single week, which will help the offense out as a whole, get them in the red zone, and give Amon-Ra those red zone targets. So Amon-Ra, I know you're probably freaking out a little bit over him if you are an owner, but don't worry about it. Still play him. He's a top 10 receiver. If you don't have him, try to trade for him low because he is that top receiver and the top option. So Amon-Ra St. Brown will be our number 9. Behind Amon-Ra St. Brown, we have CeeDee Lamb going up against the Green Bay Packers, who are allowing 28.4 fantasy points per game to this position, which is top 7. So it's a very difficult matchup, but I mean, we saw for the first time with Dak Prescott this season, him produce and hyper-target his number 1 receiver. There was no trade at the trade deadline, so CeeDee Lamb still is that alpha receiver. He's going to continue to step into that role, and while he's doing that, we're going to rank him as a top 10 receiver until noted otherwise. So CeeDee Lamb will be our number 10, and you can feel confident playing him as a wide receiver 1 option. Behind CeeDee Lamb, speaking of the Dallas Cowboy receivers, we have Amari Cooper, who I think has earned his spot in the top wide receiver conversation here. He's quietly put up 15.3 fantasy points per game and is the number 12 receiver on the entire season. And his game log has been 4.7 points, 25, 23, 1.9, 20.6, 14.4, 10.4, 22.1, which is absolutely outstanding. And the craziest thing about these numbers are they are only going to get better. The thing about Amari Cooper is with Deshaun Watson coming back here in week 13 versus the Houston Texans, which is only 3 more weeks until we have that quarterback. If he is putting up these types of numbers and this type of volume with Jacoby Brissett, he's looking really good. If you can get him, maybe piece him together with a couple lower tier wide receivers, if you have that availability, he's going to be really good come the playoffs. So if you are in a championship run team, give him a look. But otherwise, he will be our number 11 on the week, surprisingly to some, maybe not to others. Again, Before I move on, Miami Dolphins, great matchup as well, allowing 35.4 to the fantasy wide receiver position. But behind Amari Cooper is going to be Mike Evans. I'm not really sure what to think about this game. It's a very interesting matchup versus Seattle over in Germany. I don't know if this is the first time they've been in Germany or not, but nonetheless, I mean, that is quite the haul, quite the hike for these teams. And a lot of times we see it when there's a London game. There are very weird narratives that kind of play themselves out during these games because of travel, I guess, because of unfamiliar territory. But nonetheless, Mike Evans has earned his spot in this top 15 discussion. And Tom Brady and this Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense, they're seasoned veterans, so I think it affects them a little bit less than the Seattle Seahawks. Mike Evans should do fine as our number 12. Right behind Mike Evans is Chris Olave versus the second best matchup in the entire league, being the Pittsburgh Steelers, allowing 45.1 fantasy points per game to the wide receiver position. We got news that Michael Thomas was going to be out for the rest of the season. Jarvis Landry's been dealing with that injury, and Andy Dalton is still the quarterback. And even if Jameis Winston comes in, Chris Olave is still going to be a really good bet. He had another solid week. I think he's only had one game out of the double-digit figures, so Chris Olave will be a top 15 receiver, probably moving forward with the Michael Thomas news, but especially in this matchup, Chris Olave will be in that top 15 discussion at number 13 for us. Right behind Chris Olave, I might have to hold my L on this one and give us Juju Smith-Schuster. I was a Juju hater until if you were here for Sunday morning's videos, I was talking down on Juju. I was even clowning one of our subscribers for having 60% share on a Best Ball Mania draft with Juju at 60%, which is absolutely crazy to me. And I was clowning him a little bit, and then I looked at the numbers, which were quite shocking to me. I'm going to pull him in because this might surprise some of you as well. But if we look at the numbers that he's been producing, if we look at the beginning of the season right here, this is why I'm clowning him. Oh, you guys can't see that. My bad. This is why I'm clowning him right here. It went 11.9, 4.0, 13.9, 9.6, 6.3, right? With 8 targets, 3, 8. You know, on a Patrick Mahomes offense that is humming, this productivity should be way better than what we're seeing right here through 5 weeks. And then, if you look at the second half of the season, I'll go ahead and cut this off after week 5. If I can do that. You can isolate it. Now look at the scores. We have 22.3 with 5 targets, 100 yards and a touchdown. 25.4 off of 8 targets, 124 yards and a touchdown. And then 18.8 off of 12 targets, no touchdown, and still almost gets 20 points. So even though I was a hater in the beginning of the season, I thought he was not going to pan out. And honestly, in the first 5 weeks, he didn't. But this is a long season. There's a lot of football to be played, and if Juju's going to put these numbers up, we're going to be forced to put him in our top 15. Now, the caveat here is that A, McCole Hardman's been looking very good. B, Kadarius Toney is going to continue to have a workload ramped up, and C, the 12 targets came off of a performance that Patrick Mahomes threw the ball over 60 times, which is not going to happen every single week. That is an astronomical amount. I think the line for his passing attempts was probably right around like 38 or something, and he threw for 60 plus. So take it with a grain of salt, but again, we only can rank off of what we've been proven, and I'm not going to continue to tell you guys to not start Juju if he's going to put up 20-point games consecutively over the past 3 weeks. So Juju Smith will be our number 14 versus the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are a very good matchup, allowing 34.5 fantasy points to the position. Right behind Juju, again, Chris Godwin versus the Seattle Seahawks, giving us another classic Chris Godwin performance with double-digit targets and really not much productivity as far as yardage and touchdowns go. Giving us 10.7 points off of 10 targets and 7 receptions, only at 36 yards. The thing we want to focus on here, and the reason we have him ranked so high, is he's going to be on all the buy low videos that you see this week are going to have Chris Godwin in them again, just like they had him in there last week. He's, again, more removed from that hamstring injury and whatever other injuries he was dealing with. I think it was a knee in the offseason. But anyways, since he's been back, he's been putting up 10 targets, 6 targets, 12 targets, 13 targets, 11 targets, 10 targets. All double-digit targets except for 1 week. And if this is going to continue, the efficiency will kick up just by nature. So Chris Godwin is going to start to put up these 20-plus point games that we're going to want to see out of him. So versus Seattle in Germany, we'll throw him as our number 15. All right, right behind Chris Godwin, we're going to have Deebo Samuel, who honestly is probably still ranked too high. I just have to put him here out of respect versus the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, the things going against Deebo are we have a healthy George Kittle, very healthy, been producing. Brandon Ayuk is looking very good. And then obviously Christian McCaffrey is doing everything. So we didn't have Deebo Samuel last week last time they played in that 40-point performance that CMC basically had every type of touchdown you could ask for. So don't look for it to be like that every single week. I think they were overcompensating for that Deebo injury, but even if Deebo takes half that role, it's looking like 20 points, and his ceiling is not going to be as high as it once was. So even though we love Deebo Samuel as the player and for the team of the 49ers, as far as fantasy production goes, he's going to be bumped down quite a bit from what he was in the beginning of the season. Now, one thing going for Deebo Samuel is, yes, the Los Angeles Chargers are kind of middle of the pack, allowing 31.5 fantasy points to the wide receiver position. If we open the running back statistics, for the Los Angeles Chargers, they're allowing 30.1 and they're the second worst. And obviously, we all know that Deebo Samuel is that dual threat wide receiver, so he will get some touches on the ground, even with CMC there. Very diverse offense with a lot of options, especially on the ground. So I'm assuming that they're going to exploit that weakness in the Los Angeles Chargers run game, and Deebo Samuel will be a part of that. So that's what's going for Deebo Samuel this week. And we'll put him in at our number 16 on week 10. All right, right behind Deebo Samuel, we have DK Metcalf going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, allowing 32.4 fantasy points, kind of the middle of the pack versus the wide receiver position. But DK Metcalf is going to be one more week removed. Again, it's in Germany, so it's a weird matchup. You're still starting DK Metcalf for sure. It's just you got to be a little bit weary, but I mean, pretty much the entire season that he's been healthy, he's been putting up very good numbers and very good volume, which is what we're very concerned about for fantasy football. Geno Smith is continuing to prove everyone wrong as far as the preseason expectations, and regardless of what the name says on the back of the quarterback's jersey in Seattle, he's doing fine for fantasy as far as supporting fantasy assets. So DK Metcalf is going to be our number, 17 on the week, and you're going to throw him into your lineup without question. All right, right behind DK Metcalf, we have Christian Kirk, which I debated. Honestly, Christian Kirk probably should be above DK Metcalf and maybe even Deebo Samuel, just because of the matchup that gives him that extra little boost. If we look at the Kansas City Chiefs defense versus the wide receiver position, we're looking at 36.4 fantasy points allowed per game. And we saw Christian Kirk kind of give us that bounce back game that we were looking for last week. Unfortunately, it was against me in my serious league. My league of record. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I played against him and it sucked, is what I'm trying to say. He's been kind of boom bust. But when I say he's been boom bust, again, let me show you these scores, because there for a minute we had a lull period where it felt like Christian Kirk was completely falling off, and it was someone that we were even, debating if we wanted to play there for a second. Because he had that hot start right here with a bunch of targets. It was looking very solid. And then he kind of withers away right here in this area. 8.3 to 2.1, 10.8. We're kind of, I don't know if this is someone that we want to be jamming into our lineup. And then he comes back with 17.1. It's like, okay, there's a little bit of momentum. And then after that, 7, and then he has that 21.6 fantasy performance. Fantasy performance. I didn't say fantasy production. That's what I'm looking for. Fantasy performance is the phrase I've been looking for here. But anyways, if you look at his season as a whole, this is a guy you want in your lineup. You don't want 21.6 points on your bench. So throw him in there and feel fine about it is what I'm saying here. But if you're a Christian Kirk owner, you feel really good about last week because he did give you a little bit of validation of what type of asset he is for your fantasy team. But right behind Christian Kirk, we have Allen Lazard versus a very, very bad matchup in the Dallas Cowboys. He'll probably have Trayvon Diggs on him the entire game. It's looking like they allow 32.4 fantasy points to the wide receiver position in Dallas. But you have to remember, I mean, the important part here is that Allen Lazard is the last wide receiver stand-in. There's no Randall Cobb. There's no Christian Watson. There's no Romeo Doubs. It's Allen Lazard. And even on top of that, there was a report that Aaron Jones is looking to play this upcoming week versus Dallas, but he is coming off injury as well. So, I mean, this offense is decimated. The only reason I don't have him a little bit higher is because of how circus I don't know, is probably a better adjective, but how horrible the Packers offense has been looking. I mean, they look like a clown show every single week. They come out with a new identity, and it just looks so messy. You can't count on any fantasy asset in this offense, and even with Allen Lazard being the last player standing, last peripheral player standing to Aaron Rodgers, he's still going to be ranked all the way down here at number 19. So even though I like Allen Lazard moving forward this season, in a tough matchup, in a very weird and iffy offense, I'm going to bump him all the way down here to 19. But you're going to put him in your lineup. I know I am. And you're just going to hope that you can get... I mean, the good news is that Allen Lazard probably does have a 10-point baseline. So that's what you're really looking for. And he'll be someone that you want to throw in, especially if you can flex him in your lineup. So Allen Lazard will be right ahead of DJ Moore at number 19. Segueing to DJ Moore versus Atlanta. We saw what he could do last week. Or last time he played these guys just 2 weeks ago. He put up 27 points, just shy of 30. But the caveat here is that that was, half of that was off of one play at the very end of the game. We saw him come off of a dud week last week. Carolina's in shambles. We don't even know what quarterback's going to be starting next week. I don't know if it's going to be Baker. Sam Darnold's coming off injury. PJ Walker got pulled. The good news is that DJ Moore is going up against the worst ranked defense versus the wide receiver position, allowing 45.5 fantasy points per game. We saw what he did 2 weeks ago. We don't know what the quarterback situation is. But again, the good news is that he's basically the only option in the receiving game for Carolina. So we'll throw him in as our number 20 receiver on week 10. Behind DJ Moore, we have Tyler Lockett. And I'm going to go ahead and throw the following player up in Gabe Davis as well, because I think this is a good point to illustrate together that these guys are pretty much the same player. I think that Gabe Davis's ceiling is higher. I think he can put up 40 points randomly one week, whereas I don't think Tyler Lockett is going to have that support from his quarterback position. But for the most part, week in and week out, and if you look at it as an average, these guys are boom bust, big play players that don't have a incredible volume, and you're really just looking for that deep shot. So both of these guys, you're going to put in at your flex if you have the option, and you're going to temper expectations, not expecting a baseline, you're expecting the boom. So Tyler Lockett at 21, Gabe Davis at 22. All right, right behind Gabe Davis is Devontae Smith, who, again, I love as a player. The issue here is that the Eagles are just too good. They're too good. And they go up too fast, and then they pull the entire passing game. So, although, again, I do love Devontae Smith, and he's always going to have that option to boom because of his talent. Being that Slim Reaper, it might be an A.J. Brown game 1 week. It might be a Devontae Smith game 1 week. But the idea is that the ceiling is capped because the Eagles are too good. Again, going up against the Washington Commanders on Monday Night Football, which is a great matchup, allowing 36.3 fantasy points per game. But if we're realistic, Commanders suck. Philadelphia Eagles are good. They'll probably steamroll them in the first half, and then Devontae Smith's value for the rest of the game is going to go down. The hope that you do have, the pro and the silver lining here, if you're a Devontae Smith truther and you want to put him in your lineup, is that it is going to be primetime and that it's going to be a divisional game. And we've talked about this before on the channel, but if you're going on primetime, if you're going to primetime, if you're going to play in London or Germany, or if you're playing a divisional game, there is going to be that room for error in prediction of what these receivers and teams are going to do. So I will say it's not completely out of the question that the Commanders keep up with the Eagles. And if you're looking for a viewpoint to kind of set your perspective and convince yourself that putting Devontae Smith in your lineup is a good idea, that's what you're looking at, is that it's going to be prime time, it's going to be divisional, and it could be kind of that weird game that is a lot closer than we think. So Devontae Smith versus Washington will be our number 23 on the week. Behind Devontae Smith, we have Josh Palmer in the assumption that Keenan Allen misses again. I've ranked Keenan Allen in these ranking videos for the past, I don't know how long. It's been at least 3 weeks in a row where I've ranked Keenan Allen, said, no, it's looking like he's coming back. If he does, this is where he's ranked. If he doesn't, I'm not doing that anymore. Until I see Keenan Allen back on the field at a full health, or at least a full snap count involvement, I can't put him in these videos anymore. I don't know when he's coming back. So until then, Josh Palmer is going to be our number 24 on this week. He put up 18 points last week. He was a very good person to pick up off your waiver wire, plug into your lineup. And even though he's going against the San Francisco 49ers, which is a relatively difficult match, I guess it's more of a middle of the pack than difficult, where they're allowing 34.1 fantasy points to the position. If he's the Justin Herbert's number one receiver, he will have that volume to produce another good fantasy performance for you guys this week. So throw him into your lineup if Keenan Allen does not play. All right, right behind Joshua Palmer is going to be Michael Pittman Jr. going up against the Las Vegas Raiders, which is a relatively good matchup, allowing 34.3 fantasy points per game. I don't know. The issue here is that Sam Ellinger, Sam, whatever the hell, he's going to be the quarterback. He's the issue. He's not supported any fantasy value at all since he started. The developing story here, and again, what is in your favor if you're a Michael Pittman Jr. owner, is the fact that they fired their head coach. And what we've seen throughout history, when a team fires their head coach, there's this weird 2-week spike where the team just kind of pops off because, we saw it with the Carolina Panthers, but it's kind of this I don't know. It's probably just this feeling in the locker room where people are ready to go out there and prove everyone wrong, that it was the coach and not us. So we might see that spike week, even with Sam Ellinger at quarterback versus the Las Vegas Raiders being a very decent matchup versus the wide receiver position. So Michael Pittman Jr. could be in a position to succeed, but I'm terrified. I'm terrified if I'm an owner, and I'm going to try to get anything I can for him. I'll throw this into the ether. If you're watching this video and you've made it this far, throw in the comments below. I got offered Travis Etienne. I got offered to receive DeAndre Swift and Michael Pittman Jr. for Travis Etienne. Throw in the comments below if you would take that trade or not. But moving on, we have Brandon Ayuk versus the Los Angeles Chargers as the 26th position on the week. Brandon Ayuk has continued to perform on a fantasy aspect. We were talking about him when we were talking about Deebo Samuel, in the sense that he is taking some volume away from Deebo. And again, this is it's kind of like a Juju fantasy box score here, where he quietly has just been balling out. I don't know when this happened, but he has this slow start where he has these double-digit games right here, but then surrounding it with some single digits. But since then, 28.3, 15.2, 20.1 with 11, 6 targets, and pretty much averaging 80 yards on the dot with a touchdown a game. So I don't know if there was a scheme change, if Brandon Ayuk's taking that step forward. Obviously, last week we had Deebo Samuel not playing, but if this is going to be what Brandon Ayuk is doing on a weekly basis, this is someone that we're going to want in our lineup, because the last thing you want as a fantasy manager is seeing 20.8 or 28.3 fantasy points on your bench in a loss. So if you could throw Brandon Ayuk into your flex, go ahead and do so comfortably against the Los Angeles Chargers, who are allowing a barrage of fantasy points to pretty much all positions. So throw Brandon Ayuk in as your number 26 wide receiver for Week 10. Right behind Brandon Ayuk is Terry McLaurin. Basically, whenever he has Taylor Heineke at quarterback, this is someone that we're going to want to throw into our flex position if we have possible. If we have that possibility. I'm trying to pull up his stats, but ever since Taylor Heineke's come in, he has been producing at a very high level. The only thing, again, you want to look out for if you are a Terry McLaurin owner is the fact that Jahan Dotson could come back this week. But since Jahan Dotson has been gone with Taylor Heineke, in as the quarterback. We've seen 18.3 points, 16.6, 10.6 off of 8, 8, 9 targets, which, again, we're looking for that 8 to double-digit range of volume. And if Terry McLaurin's going to continue to get that off of passes from Taylor Heineke, which are basically very risky, high-yardage passes, which Terry McLaurin does capitalize on pretty much once a game. So Terry McLaurin versus the Philadelphia Eagles on Thursday Night Football is going to be our number 27 on the week. All right, right behind Terry McLaurin, we have Jerry Jeudy, the wide receiver 1 in Denver. We're not going to be playing Courtland Sutton, and it's going to continue to stay that way unless we're proven otherwise. But the important thing here is that Jerry Jeudy has been getting involved. It's been obvious that the coaching scheme has changed to intentionally involve Jerry Jeudy. I don't know if this was through the trade talks. I don't know if this was, I don't know what kind of incentivized the coaching staff in Denver to make this change, but it's obvious. And the reason it's obvious is because we see plays schemed up to get Jerry Jeudy the ball, whether it's through the air or through the ground. We saw him have a rushing touchdown a couple weeks ago. So if they're going to continue to scheme up these these touches for Jerry Jeudy, as they should, then he's going to be someone that's going to be in our top 30 moving forward. Going up against the Tennessee Titans, allowing 40.5 fantasy points per game to the wide receiver position, the third worst in the entire NFL. Despite all of the woes from the Denver Broncos offense and just the football organization in the past 9 weeks, Jerry Jeudy is in a good position here to succeed. And if you want to throw him in your flex or even a wide receiver 2 in these bye weeks, then I wouldn't be mad about it. And honestly, I would be encouraging it. So Jerry Jeudy will be our number 28 on the week. All right, right behind Jerry Jeudy, we have Rondale Moore versus the Los Angeles Rams. If there's a scenario where Jalen Ramsey is really battling it out with DeAndre Hopkins, Rondale Moore is going to suck up a lot of volume, and we've talked about the volume in Arizona. I'll talk about it again just in case you're new to the channel, but the volume in Arizona typically is just insane. Cliff Kingsbury coaches this team like it's a game of Madden, which means he runs the most amount of plays in the entire league, or at least a top 5. I should have said the most, but he's definitely in the top echelon of plays run as far as, the whole scope of all 32 NFL teams. And if you're going to own players in that fantasy, or if you're going to own fantasy players on the Arizona Cardinals on a team that's running this many plays, that just means volume, especially for these wide receivers that, again, they don't have Marquise Brown in Arizona. So if they're going to throw the ball a bunch of times and they can distribute 10 targets to both DeAndre Hopkins and Rondale Moore, even if Rondale Moore isn't taking it for crazy yardage or for touchdowns, you're still going to get a baseline of 10 points and whatever yardage comes on top of that. So Rondale Moore is going to have to be shoved in to the top 30 at number 29. For number 30, I cheated at number 30, and I'm going to give you 2 players because I don't know who's the number 1 here. I don't know who it is. I have a suspicion that it will be George Pickens. But we're going to have George Pickens and Deontay Johnson here at number 30 versus the New Orleans Saints, who are basically middle of the pack, allowing 33.6 fantasy points per game to the wide receiver position. And the Chase Claypool trade is the touch point for this ranking. Is Chase Claypool obviously got traded to the Chicago Bears last week, and in the previous 2 weeks before that, he kind of assumed this role of, I'm not going to say the wide receiver 1 in Pittsburgh, but he was getting a lot of targets and he had a blow-up game. So if those targets, yardage, touchdowns, if all that is freed up now that Chase Claypool is gone and it's just going to get distributed between George Pickens and Deontay Johnson, there could be something here. I'm hoping personally it's Deontay Johnson because I own him in fantasy. But I would love to see George Pickens succeed too, even in a rivalry game or a rival team. Since I'm a Ravens fan, I do love George Pickens as the prospect. I was really hoping he fell to us. But that's besides the point. I think we're going to wait and see what happens this week to these receivers. But if you want to throw one of them in this game, I'm not mad about it. And I think you do have kind of a second wind if you're a Deontay Johnson or George Pickens owner just because of this Chase Claypool trade. But that's going to round out our top 30/31 video for Week 10 wide receiver rankings. If you think I did good, if you think I ranked horribly, please let me know in the comments below. I'd love to see all the feedback. And again, if you have any questions, drop those below too. We had a lot of support last week, A, and a lot of comments last week, B, which is a lot of fun for me. I like responding to those. So drop your comments down below. like the video, subscribe to the channel. We're putting out running back rankings tomorrow for week 10. Until tomorrow, peace out. I'll see you guys then.